Through handprint care, we did a lot of looking back at these Southern African landscapes, asking the question, how have Southern African cultures learned to live in an area of high climate variability, where it was really important to predict seasonal climatic conditions in Southern Africa. And of course, the seasonal cycles of the region north of the Zambezi River were governed by the seasonal movement of the sun that sustains the movement of the intertropical convergence zone. This convergence brings rain that moves north and south between the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn. Agroecological cultures had learned to read the seasonal arrival of the rains by tracking the movement of the sun. The arrival of the sun and other seasonal signs like migratory birds and the buildup of clouds from the north enabled them to coordinate the planting of crops to coincide with the arrival of summer rains. And then, of course, when they moved south of the Zambezi from about the 8th century, the arrival of the seasonal rainfall was a lot harder to predict, owing mainly to the influence of the El Nino-La Nina oscillation in the southern Pacific Ocean. We only learned about this a matter of 30 to 40 years ago. This brought cycles of climatic variation that are difficult to predict, even with the climate science that we have today. So if we look at a curriculum topic like climate change and the concern for climate extremes and risk, we could look at right back to the stone-walled settlements, like Chigwedere describes how the cultures of the Kalanga, masters of water, and the later Ziwa, both reflected an early stone settlements in this area. We now know that they were African settlements with ceremonies to interpret both cycles of the sun and the moon to predict the arrival of summer rains for their cropping. And if we look at this in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals, we can tune in around these ideas, and we can look at, well, predicting of the summer rains was not easy in an area of high climate variability. The cycles of drought were more severe and the seasons more variable south of the Zambezi. These could be accompanied by famine, cholera, and civil disturbance. And there were a lot of disruptions like that. So climate variability, famine, cholera, and civic disturbances could account for a return to village settlements and shifting agriculture in the region after dynastic periods of stone towns and sedentary agriculture. So if we try to find out more about this and get over the colonial imperative that it was a mystery where people went to, well, in our own areas we can start inquiring about how are climate variability and extreme events starting to affect cities in southern Africa, like they affected the stone cities of centuries ago. We can start working out what can be done to mitigate climate variability and reduce the risk of famine and disease, as well as look at actions that we might be able to take around what can we do to reduce risk associated with climate change. So it's very interesting to look at the past about the making of the landscapes in southern Africa and the cultures that moved around and the challenges that they had, and now the challenges of climate that we have today. And here's some references and resources that you might find useful.